Reading through the scriptures today, I was struck over and over and over again by the characters in the stories that we hear about today. First, of course, in the first reading we have Naaman, the Syrian, and he seems to have been a good man. It certainly describes him as valiant, but I say he was a good man in that so many people seem to love him. That we have his wife's servant girl who says, if only my master would present himself to the prophet in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy. And then his own king sent him with lots and lots of money to go to the king of Israel to be healed. And then after he turns away from Elisha the prophet, his servants said, just do what he tells you. That they care a lot about him, and that it usually is a signification of someone who's good. You look at, for instance, King Herod the Great in the time when Jesus was born. There may have been a lot of people that surrounded him, a lot of people that were looking to join in his power, but I'm sure there weren't many who loved him because he was not a good man. And in fact, those in his own family he killed. In fact, it was safer to be a dog in his court than to be a son, because he killed his sons and at least he fed the dogs. But we look at this, and so here's this man who has certain expectations. And then I look at the little girl who is taken from the land of Israel, who becomes the servant of Naaman's wife. She has these expectations too. If only my master would present himself to the prophet in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy. That she has this expectation, God will work. I've heard about Elisha, he's a powerful prophet. You just go to him. And she has this incredible faith. And because of this faith, then it moves this pagan to go to the God of Israel. And then we have the king of Aram. He has this expectation. Okay, well, if you expect it, I trust you. Then go. But then we have the expectations of the king of Israel. He comes and he's expecting that this guy is just coming to start a war. Am I a God with the power over life and death, that this man should send someone to me to be cured of leprosy? Take note. You can see how he is only looking for a quarrel with me. He wants to come up and fight me. That's why he's sending me something that's impossible. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this before. When you think someone is asking something impossible of you, sometimes it gets us frustrated and defensive. And, well, what do you want? Look at what they're trying to do. Instead of looking at what they're really asking for, to go to the prophet. To go to the prophet. What are our expectations? And then Elisha's expectations, God is going to work. God is powerful. Why do you tear your garments, he says to the king. Send him to me. And so Naaman goes to Elisha. And he says, go and wash 7 times in the Jordan, and your flesh will be healed and you will be cleaned. But Naaman, his expectations weren't met. I thought surely that he would come out and stand there to invoke the Lord his God, and he would move his hand over the spot and cure the leprosy. What is he asking me to do? Go and wash. He's not expecting God to work in this way. He's expecting something more powerful, something greater, something different. And so he nearly goes away without being healed. And if that were the case, we would not have heard this story at all in the scriptures. There would have been no reason for them to write it down. But then the servants, you can see their expectations. That God somehow is moving, that they trust this little girl who had been a servant, who had seen power working in Elisha. Well, go, wash and be clean. How much more to do something simple than if you were to do something extraordinary? And so he goes, and he sees God's power, and what happens? His heart changed. Now I know that there is no God in all the earth except in Israel. And while they stop it there, then he asks, he wants to give all these gifts to Elisha, and Elisha says, no, I'm not accepting any gifts. He says, well, can I at least take some of the dirt from this land so that I can then go back to my own land and spread the dirt there and worship your God, because your God must be connected to the land. And Elisha's like, well, he's really everywhere. But, okay, if that'll make you happy, take the dirt with you, get a wheelbarrow, carry it home. And so we see how God has worked through faith of little ones to bring about great healing. Then in the gospel today, this is the time when Jesus goes to his hometown of Nazareth, and he opens the scroll of the prophet Isaiah, and he reads, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He has anointed me to bring glad tidings to the poor and liberty to captives," and all that. And then he says, "This day, this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." And they're all amazed, except some are like, "Wait a second, he grew up with us. We know his mom, his dad, we know his family. What's going on? Who is this guy I think he is?" And that's when Jesus says, no prophet is accepted in his own native place. And he talks about Elijah and Elisha, and then the people, their expectations of who Jesus is, cloud their vision of what it is that he can do. And so they get so angry. How dare you? How dare you condemn us? How dare you say that we're not God's people? And so they go to throw him over the brow of the hill. They want to kill him. They were just amazed at what he said. They want to kill him because their expectations of who he was did not jive with what he said. What are our expectations? Are we like the little girl who has that great faith and, whatever God does, great, I trust him? Or are our expectations of God clouding how we think he's going to act? So often we can turn away from what God is asking us to do because we think, well, that's not the way God acts, right? That's not exact. I expect him to come in power. Or we look at the world around us and we look at all the evil that is out there and all the way, and we say, how come God hasn't come and smitten that particular politician? How come God hasn't come and changed that? Instead of recognizing, but God's in charge. He has a plan, and I may not know how he's working, but he is working. I may not be able to see how God triumphs. But even in the midst of this evil, the evil one doesn't have the last word. And he is not in charge. And God is allowing all of this. Even COVID he allows. Because he has some plan, some greater glory in store. But we'll miss it if we cling to our expectations. May we turn to God today in this Mass and look at how we expect God to act, how we expect the world to be, what we even expect of ourselves, and surrender them into God's hands. Maybe just praying, Jesus, I trust in you. Jesus, I trust in you. Lord, take away this expectation. I trust in you. Lord, I surrender this way that I expect you to act. Jesus, I trust in you.